Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Happy Wednesday, and welcome to the Rebellious Counselor Live. It's nice to see everybody back here. And tonight, as you know, we have a very special guest that I'm very, very, very excited to have here tonight. And her name is Rosalie Brown. Hi, Rosalie. Welcome from Los Angeles, California.
Hey, thank you for having me.
All right. Wait, I can't hear you there. Now I can hear you. That was my fault. So welcome to the Rebellious Counselor Live. And I'm going to explain to everybody who you are and what you do. And then I want you to kind of help us understand a little bit more about what you do, because it's so interesting. And just so everybody knows, I have worked with Rosalie for, I don't know, many months now. And can definitely say that she has been a major influence in my life and helping guide my journey. And I'm so thankful to her. And I wanted to share her with all of you. And so Rosalie calls herself a couple different things. She's a spiritual mentor, personal development coach, and also she is a psychic. And so all of these interesting talents that go so well hands in hand with the field of counseling. Welcome to the show. And can you tell us a little bit about what it means to be a psychic, to be a spiritual mentor and personal development coach?
Okay, well, I will try to keep this succinct.
Okay.
I think that the most encompassing title would be like intuitive consultant. That's what I tell people I am.
Okay, intuitive consultant. Okay.
Because sometimes people hear the word psychic and they're like, oh, okay, like you're one of those, you know. And really what an intuitive or a psychic is doing is they are picking up on energy and they're, you know, reading the energy, but really the information that's contained in the energy. And so all of us have the ability to pick up on energy, right? Like someone walks in a room and you know almost right away, yeah, I'm drawn to that person, or I have a stop sign here, like, no, that's not a good fit. We all have that natural ability. I think what intuitive folks or people that have kind of stepped into that, what we're doing is we're getting that energy and then we're reading the information that's in the energy. And so I came to this work really, you know, kind of started giving people psychic readings, but my style and delivery is really, you know, I'm asking what's most helpful for you to know right now. And I kind of ask, you know, how can I help this person feel empowered and remind them of the choices that they have? Because this is all free will, baby. It's all free will. And you can change up anything at any time. I don't believe things are destined. I don't believe that your future is, someone can foretell your future. I don't believe you can fortune tell. I believe that as a psychic or someone who's able to work with energy, I believe what we can do is we can illuminate your choices and also help to show some things to you that might be kind of hidden for you.
Okay.
Because when you're going through something, you have an emotional attachment to it, and you have an outcome that you really want. And sometimes it feels like you're not going to be able to get it, or you're running up against challenges or roadblocks. And so what someone like me would do, you know, we would kind of feel into it and we would feel the energy and we would kind of do our thing, and we would help bring you to a point where you could see some choices that might really help you feel alive and connected and empowered. And so that's kind of how I approach everything I do. From a spiritual mentor, standpoint, I think that I do meet people on their path that are kind of just waking up to their gifts, and they need a little bit of guidance and kind of some help, some maybe mentorship in the way that I don't want them to feel overwhelmed or scared. A lot of this stuff is kind of new to people, and so just kind of being a sounding board or offering some guidance in that arena. So kind of do all of that and maybe a little bit more. I don't know if that was.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. So, all right, let's talk about the psychic part first. We'll kind of break it down. So, I think traditionally when we hear the word psychic, just like with any profession, including mine, if you think of a therapist, you think of, some old person like with their glasses on, analyzing you and taking notes and with a lab coat and diagnosing you with something really scary. And that's what puts a lot of people off to come to therapy, and why I call myself the rebellious counselor is because I don't do any of that. And trying to kind of break the stigma that we have as therapists. So when I think about the word psychic, I think, there's certain things that will pop up into people's minds in their, association with psychic. And I think we do tend to think of fortune teller or, and when I mention, or if I ask someone, have you ever spoken to a psychic? They'll say, well, no, I don't want to know what's going to happen in my future. And I'm like, well, that's not what it's about. It's about, someone else having a better read on, where you are spiritually in your life or where you are on your path than you might be able to have because of certain gifts that they have. So I guess the question is, if somebody is coming to you solely just for the psychic piece, what might they expect? What would it look like to have a session with you that's just, hey, I need a psychic reading? What does that mean?
Right. No, it's a good question. So first, let me just say that I shared all of those ideas on what a psychic was before I, kind of stepped into my gift and started really practicing and embracing it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to come out of the psychic closet and tell people that I was psychic, because my idea of a psychic was these folks that have this, what I've come to call costuming, this real posture, almost like dressed in white, wearing white flowy clothes and bathing in the river and howling at the, full moon and
holding
like
a crystal ball, something like that.
And I was like, I'm none of those things. I can't be psychic, because my idea of what a psychic was attached to that. And I was like, I'm anything but that. I'm flawed. I'm a mess. I'm amazing. I'm all the same things that everyone else is. And how could I be psychic? But when I finally realized that, that's just their costuming, how they choose to express their idea of what they think a psychic should look like, then I was like, oh, okay. Okay, so session with me. Typically, if someone does like a phone session, I will get ready for them ahead of time. I will kind of sit about, 5 minutes or so before we get ready. I'll get real still, and I'll ask my guides, my spirit guides, to show me in my body with energy any messages that I could share with them. So let's say I'm, still and getting ready for this person, and I'll get like a tightness in my chest. I'll write that down. Or I'll get like a funniness like in my throat. Okay, I'll write that down. And to me, these are things for me to hold on to. Like, hey, be sure to ask them if they're feeling like there's conversations they can't have, or they're having trouble communicating their thoughts, or whatever. I take these notes.
Okay.
They call.
Okay.
As we talk, I start to connect with their energy, and then I'm going to be really honest with you. Stuff just starts coming out. I just kind of am connecting with their energy, and what they need to know starts to come through me. I don't check out. I don't leave my body, but it's just kind of like all of a sudden, I just know what's important for them to focus on. Or I'll bring up, hey, when I was getting ready with you, I felt this tightness in my throat. It's starting to really feel like maybe this is a conversation, a communication issue you might be having. And as we start to talk a little bit, then it's like I don't have to ask as many questions. I'm really in with the energy, and this information just kind of drops into my head, and I just kind of share. So I become more of the channel.
Okay, like a conduit between.
Right. So I don't like leave my body, to be clear. Like I'm not in a trance state and something's taking over, but I just kind of turn my attitude and my personality and my filter, and I move them out of the way, as charming as they are. I move them out of the way.
They are. And let me tell you guys, she's got a killer personality and a great sense of humor. So you
I'm very
get that
sarcastic.
too. Yeah,
but I moved that out of the way, and then I just kind of let the information drop in and flow through. So it becomes more about the message instead of the messenger. And so, by the time we're done, typically people have got some insight or some, I want to say some illumination they didn't have before. I don't predict outcomes, but what I do is I say, based on the energy right now, if you stay on the trajectory that you're on, this is what it shows me is probably the most likely direction you're headed or the most likely outcome. But I don't predict future, and I don't really give timelines, because as much as I'd love to, time is fluid, and time really only exists here in this dimension. So, it's not really a currency that is used with the energies I'm working with. So,
okay.
Anyway,
so can you explain, because like you and I are so used to this lingo, but I know a lot of people who are watching might have no idea what we're talking about. So when you say spirit guides, okay, can you explain spirit guides? What are they? Do we all have them? How do we get to know them?
That topic could go on for an entire show. But in a nutshell, we all have spirit guides. And they're basically your invisible helpers. Okay. So they're with you your entire time that you're kind of here and doing your thing. And you can ask them for help at any time, and they will help guide you in the right direction. It's like, it's almost like they're not your messengers. They're not like your butlers, but I do think of them as like my helpers. Okay. So we all have these helpers, and for me, they don't appear with physicality because they're energy consciousness. So for me, when I'm doing a reading, I will ask my guides to kind of show up and be present for me, and then they kind of flow the information to me. So spirit guides are really a topic that it depends on your belief system. Some people think that they're like your guardian angels. I personally believe that when we're on the other side before we get here, we're part of soul tribes, and we're all energy consciousness. And what happens is you decide to come in and do this crazy 3D experiment and have fun and get crazy with it. And they say, okay, if you're going to be the brave one and go in, here's our commitment to you. We're going to go ahead and be on call for you to help you remember all the stuff you know right now. Well, when you come over here, you kind of forget a lot of it. So they're kind of like your lifeline. There was that show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And you could make that phone call, and that was your lifeline. They're kind of like that. They're your connection to the other side. And yes, we all have them.
Okay. So the spirit guides, like when you're working, is it kind of like your spirit guides are talking to your client's spirit guides, like they're having a conversation and then it's flowing, that information, you're able to read that information?
Yeah, I mean, so every reading is permission based. Okay. So like if someone comes to me and says, hey, I want to know what my ex-boyfriend is thinking. Okay, well, first, I don't read minds, because that's a no-no. That's permission based, and I don't even have that ability, by the way, and I don't want it.
Right.
Because I already know I have enough trouble with my own thoughts.
Okay.
I don't want to be able to read minds. So what I will do is I will let my spirit guides know, like, hey, I really want to bring in information for this person's highest and greatest good. Now, if my spirit guides are having a powwow with their spirit guides, that could be. I don't know about if their spirit guides are involved, but I know that I'm getting my information through spirit guides. So I refer to mine and say, hey, let's hook us up. Like, give me what I need to know. And then it kind of flows in for me. So it's a great question. But to be honest, I don't know the actual technicalities on if their guides are involved. I would assume so. Because again, readings are very permission based.
Okay.
I don't walk around reading people when I'm in the grocery store. They didn't give me their permission. So I don't go around poking and going, energetically, like,
What if
it's fascinating, but I don't do that.
Right. That would be
I have to
so
have
like,
permission.
that would be so, I don't know.
Overwhelming.
Yeah, sneaky and gossipy in a way. Like, to
I know,
just
and like, what am I? Like, it doesn't help me to know anything that's going on with that
right.
woman unless she wants me to know. So, and
Right.
most of the time, to be honest with you, other people's energy is a bit exhausting. So I've got my own issues. So I stay in my lane unless you hire me, and then if you hire me, I'm going to do everything for you, boo. But I have enough issues. Like, I'm not trying to get in other people's business.
Right. Right. Okay. So just to be clear, and I really want to make this clear to the audience and anyone who is watching will be watching, that let's clear up the stigma. Okay. Psychics are not people who walk around and read everybody's minds and, report back to their family on it. They're not people who can just get any information that they want, nor can they read your minds at any given time.
No.
They have, good ethical psychics, which I think is hard to find good ethical anything in this world. Doctors, lawyers, accountants, psychics.
It can be.
It's challenging. So when you find someone that, does have an ethical fiber that they, live with and live by, then they're going to not be able to, and not even try to get any information about the clients without the client giving that permission to you. And I think that's important to know.
Right. And anybody that, there's a lot of psychics that are, so I live in Los Angeles, as you know, and anytime I'm driving around, it doesn't matter what neighborhood I'm in, there are storefronts with psychics everywhere.
I see that here too.
And they have like their little sandwich boards out front and stuff. And a lot of them will say like, I'll read your mind, or I'll read his mind for you, or telepathy and all this. And here's the reason that doesn't work for me on any level. First off, you don't have that person's permission to read their mind, even if you could do it, which I don't personally believe you can. I don't think you can, because it's permission based, and that person has to give you permission, or it's not going to work. So what is this? So what do we do? And let's just say that I could read minds, and I was telepathic, and I could do all this stuff. How does that help you? Why does it matter what Brian's thinking? Let's keep the focus on you. What can we do to help you feel better? What can we do to help you step into your power? Because this idea that I can only be happy when I know what he's thinking or she's thinking or what's going to happen, that's not really true. In fact, that's creating dependency and codependency, and that's stripping you of your power. It doesn't matter what Brian thinks or Julie thinks or your boss thinks. Let's talk about you. What can we do to help you step into your power and do things that are good for you? That's my focus. It's not on what Randy's thinking or Jennifer's thinking, or, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I do.
Let's keep this about you.
And I think that that's an issue for all of us caregivers, like all of us in the caregiving professions, especially when it comes to mental health, which I consider you, part of that field. We get people in very vulnerable moments, and they do often come to us. At least I know, definitely for me, they want to talk, like, for instance, if there's a woman who's having trouble with her husband, she wants to come in and talk about her husband. Right. And I always say, okay, I understand that you want to bounce this stuff, these observations you've made up against me for feedback. And I get that, but we're here because you're the one sitting on my couch, and you're the one who's having, who's asking for help. So let's refocus on you. And sometimes I have to do that several times in a session. And, I understand, like, when you're feeling kind of desperate and your marriage is on the line, or your family or your children or something, you just want to know, but.
Right. And I think if I could just kind of piggyback on that, I think it's important to hold empathy and to, hold the space for them, and, go ahead and vent, like let it out. Right. Like, I get that. But my job is to help you see what your choices are in the situation, where your power is. Right. And if we can just soften some of the edges, because really when it happens to us, we get that initial, gut punch. But the more you keep replaying that story or that incident, the more you keep that in your vibration. And the more it keeps coming back. And it's like the gut punch just happened. So it's kind of like you're getting punched in the gut again and again and again every time you tell that story. So let's go ahead and tell the story, kind of get it out a little bit. Let's get the volume down on it so we can start to work from there. And you can't, as you know, you can't push people along too quickly, because this is a process, right? So I do have empathy. One of my guidelines, though, is if someone continually comes back to me on the same topic repeatedly, I put the brakes on and I let them know we need to take a break, or I try to refocus them to another, type of healing work. Or because the bottom line is, you can't keep revisiting and asking, it's like when I tell people, okay, you have to give things some, like, let's say that I have a great session with you and we talk about kind of what's coming up maybe, or what you're working on. And it's like, okay, the energy feels good, and this is where it feels aligned. And we have all this great session, and you leave and you feel so great and empowered. And then you come back the very next day, Rosalie, check in for me. Oh, am I making progress? And then the next day, what's the progress like? What? Like, whoa.
Yeah, that's not healthy.
What you're doing is you're obsessing, one, and two, you're not giving enough time and space for things to come together. I mean, none of this is instant. This isn't a magic button, right? So in the intuitive kind of counseling work I do with people, it does tend to, and I shouldn't say counseling, it's more like coaching, right? So I'm really trying to help them get to these milestones where they can concentrate and focus, but at the same time kind of detach from the emotional, what's the word, static, and the the discomfort they feel. Like, let's get you focused on what is working or what you can do, so that you're feeling empowered and encouraged, and you give time and space for things to work themselves out. This is not, again, an instant fix on anything in life. I wish there was an easy button. I would love it.
I would be pushing it every day. I would be
pushing it before I got out of bed.
That button. Right. But I think that is part of the stigma of, what anyone with spiritual gifts could possibly bring, is that instantaneous answer to someone's problem. And, one of the many things I admire about you is that you're very upfront about, what anyone's going to get out of the kind of work you do. So if I could just move on to this idea of energy, because I find it so fascinating. So when you say that you read energy, could you explain to us and everyone who's watching, what does that mean, or how can we sort of understand that concept?
Okay. That's a big one. Let me see. I'm going to ask for some help in this one.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask for a little bit of help me to put this in a perspective that makes sense. Okay, so we are sensory beings, right? As human beings, we're sensory, and we've got the five senses that we know about, but we all have more senses than that. We're all very perceptive, and we're picking up on vibrations and energy. And the entire universe, as quantum physics will, talk about, is made up of packets of energy. So we're constantly working with energy, and it's everywhere. Someone who is kind of stepping into their psychic gifts, which I believe we all have, by the way, has just got a heightened awareness of the energy and the nuances in the energy and the information in the energy. So one of the ways that I started, I could always feel energy a little bit. Like I mentioned in the beginning, someone would walk in the room and I'd be like, oh, no way. Or, oh my gosh, I feel like, we're going to be a good connection. So I've always felt that. And I think that when you have trauma from childhood, which I did, and a million other people, maybe billions of people, had traumatic childhoods, you tend to be hypersensitive to your environment. So I just carried that with me. And that certainly helped in this pursuit of, psychic stuff. but reading the energy. So I learned to get real quiet and still within myself and just kind of, what's the best way to put it? I guess imagine being in alignment. So the more time I spent in alignment, the more I would notice energy outside of my own.
Okay.
We all know that we push off a vibration, like we have energy coming out of our bodies. And we know that because if we put our hands on our chest and we were slowly to pull your hand away, you can feel that between your hand and your body, you've got an energy field right there. And you start to feel probably about 18 inches out. I'm not very good with numbers, maybe 12 inches, 18 inches. You can start to feel it fade away, right? But there's a zone right in there where you feel it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I decided one day, okay, prove it. If you're here, prove it. If spirit guides are real, if there's energy outside of myself and I can really feel it, and it's not just my imagination, you know me, I have total attitude about everything. Prove it. So I was kind of like a challenge. So what I did was I could feel where my energy was, and I was like, okay, if I have a spirit guide, come on over. Like I want to feel you. I want to know you're here. So I turned my hand this way, and I kind of did this, and even like right now, I'm getting resistance because they're like, "Hello, dummy, we're right here."
Okay.
But I basically was like, "Prove it."
Okay.
And so I didn't do it that succinctly. I did a whole like, until I felt something, and then I was like, "Oh wow, okay. So there really are energy fields everywhere." Okay. So then, okay, so that's energy. My take on my energy. How I knew there was other energy. And then to start reading the energy on a more, I guess, succinct way or a more useful way, I started to use automatic writing, which is where I would meditate for about 3 minutes, just long enough to quiet my brain so it would stop the monkey chatter. And then as soon as I came out of the meditation, I would write down on a piece of paper, what's in my best interest to know right now? Then I would start to kind of doodle, so I would keep my hand busy. And then I would notice, because I was quiet, my brain was quiet, my energy was focused, I would start to notice a thought drop in. That's the only way I can describe it, is I would notice the thought when it arrived, the answer to my question. I didn't hear it with my ears. It just appeared in my consciousness, and I started to notice it. So I just let that thought drop in, and I started writing exactly what came through. An entity didn't take over my body. Spirit didn't jump in. I just cleared my chatter and paid attention to the thought that dropped in. And I started doing this a couple times a day for about, I don't know, 5 to 7 days. And then I thought, well, what if I just skip the writing part and I just start asking, am I going to notice if a thought appears? Are they going to talk directly to me? Am I going to get this? So I started doing it without the automatic writing. And I started having conversations that I was pretty sure was with the spirit guide, but what if it wasn't? So then I started to look at pictures of people. And when I would look at a picture, I would get a sensation in my body. So for instance, I was looking at a photo of this woman and my chest started to hurt, like my lungs got real tight for a second. And then I felt overwhelmed with sadness. And I came to find out that this woman had COPD and her sadness was because she had just lost a child.
Oh, wow.
So for me, I made a very conscious effort to explore this. Like it was like a mystery. I wanted to know if it was real. And I wanted to know, okay, if I say yes, am I going to get any results? I took it on and I was open to it. And as soon as I opened up to it, it was like, I got results. But I had to keep kind of pushing and I had to keep kind of asking and questioning. And it took me a while to get over the idea that maybe this is my imagination. But then I put it into practice and here we are a bunch of years later. I don't know if I answered your question.
You did. No, you did. You absolutely did. So basically, energy is information. Would that be accurate to say?
Yeah.
And then if you learn how to read energy, you're actually reading information, and how that energy line comes through, I guess, could be in many different ways to our senses. It could be, by thinking a thought, or you also feel things in your body, or maybe
Right.
get images of something. It seems like that you could smell something. There's just
Limitless ways.
limitless
Yeah.
ways.
Limitless
So
ways.
it's sort of like, for someone who might be interested in understanding this, I certainly am, and I'm always practicing with it and playing around with it, and it's really phenomenal once you can kind of tap into it. But it's a feeling that becomes so overwhelming you can't deny it, I think, in a way. Like when
Right.
you start to really tap into it, it's like, because it's always the human side of us that we've been conditioned to believe that this is not possible, that it
Right.
doesn't exist. And so there's like a period of time where you fight with I fight with myself with it, like, is it
Yes.
me thinking this, or is this really coming, and so you've been
Right.
able to sort of master that and then use it for the greater good for other people.
Well, I hope it's for the greater good, but I have to be honest with you. It also occurs to me that it's also very selfish, because every time that I'm able to work with someone and help them, I'm healed a little bit too.
Yeah, I
You
find that to
know,
be true as a therapist. No question about
right.
it.
You
No
know,
question about it.
so it is definitely something that helps me as well. It also makes me feel like I'm, being of service. And then when I'm able to kind of help someone connect with some things, it makes me feel energized. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I want to go write another article, or I want to go do that. I get a sense of oomph, new spring in my step. So it's good for me as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that anybody who's really inspired or passionate about what they do feels that way. I just last week I interviewed my dance instructor, and he feels that way
Yeah.
from his interaction and teaching people to dance, because I think when you're really inspired, it's like an automatic reward from the universe, that you feel good, you feel great about it.
Right, for sure. And it's great because you get like instant feedback, like instant confirmation, like you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, like you feel alive and connected to your work. And really for me, I'm gonna be honest, it doesn't matter so much if it's like I wrote something that really resonated with someone, or if I had a session with them and they really feel some relief, or they feel like, okay, I'm not alone, whatever it is, it just makes me feel like this all starts to make a little bit more sense. I do just want to say this one thing, because I know that whoever sees and hears this hopefully are the people that are meant to see and hear it.
Yeah.
That's what I think. But for anyone who's like, psychics are full of it, right? I get that. The biggest thing I get as evidence that it's not real, if I'm psychic, how come I don't know the lottery numbers? Or how come I don't know blah, blah, blah? Okay, the one thing I want to say is that any legitimate psychic has actual, I want to say, what's the right word, ethics, and like kind of a code of conduct that we have to be a part of. And so if I were to say to my guides, tell me what the lottery numbers are, I'm not going to guess the lottery numbers unless it's in my highest and greatest good. And you know what? It's probably not my highest and greatest good to win the lottery. So all I can do is ask for what's in my highest and greatest good, and also the person I'm reading, what's in their highest, greatest good. I don't have access to all the information in the universe. I don't, my guides don't flip on a movie switch where I get to watch your life. I can only ask and have information about the things you've granted me permission to know. I can't, like, we're having a session and suddenly, oh, I could see beyond you and see your past and everything you've ever done. It's not a crystal ball where I see your entire, life. I see what is appropriate for the session. So I know it's easy to kind of blow it off and be like, you people are kooks. And maybe we are. We have to be a little bit kooky, right? But a lot of us do operate with integrity, and we treat our sessions as confidential. And I also have enough clients, I don't remember what we talked about. Like, I'm not going to you're not gonna have to worry about me telling your secrets, because like a day from now, I'm probably not gonna remember what we talked about. Not because I don't care, but because I'm not meant to retain that information.
And you talk to a lot of people, you talk to a lot of people. So, okay, so let's transition into this whole idea of spirituality, because it's the other day I asked you on the phone, like, how do you define spirituality? And when I asked you that question, I'm thinking, how can I ask her this question? This is way too big. And you were just like, boom, answer. So, Rosalie, how do you define spirituality?
Okay. So there's you, and then there's everything else.
Okay.
The entire universe.
That's it.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Okay.
Lights on, cameras off, we're done.
Okay, can you just give us a little bit more? So, like, do you mean the connection between us and the universe, or do you mean just the being? I don't know. Help me.
I mean exactly what you just said. And really, the more simple that you keep it, the better, in my opinion, because here's the thing, and I come from this, I'm going to go into why I got here.
Yeah.
I was raised in a Roman Catholic household.
Okay.
And if you know anything about Catholicism, you know that Roman Catholic is like the hardcore Catholic. Like,
okay.
No messing around.
Okay.
Not only did we not have meat on Fridays, any Friday, any week of the year, forget Lent and all that, like just no meat on Fridays. We had fish every single Friday. We went to the Mass, was in Latin. The God that I grew up with in my church was the God you're supposed to fear. It was the fire and brimstone. And so for me, I didn't feel close to God. I felt afraid of God. I felt like everything I do, like I'm being judged. Oh my God. Like, ooh, like I didn't feel any connection. And then when I started going through the steps I was supposed to take in church to reach, confirmation and beyond, what I realized as a small child even was there's all these people between me and God, and there's all this hierarchy. I'm never going to get there. And I'm not having any fun while I'm getting there anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having to go to confession every week and tell God's friend, the priest here, what a loser I am and how I committed all these sins and I just can't get it right. So I was living in a cloud of shame, and I felt no connection to God. I felt like I was in big trouble, And I was like, well, if I'm going to go to hell for the rest of eternity, I'm going to really have some fun and break some taboos while I'm here.
Right.
So I did. Did a lot of really not good stuff. But the point is, I understood why religion was introduced to me. It was meant to be a tenet of faith and something to make me feel strong, but it made me feel weak, and it made me feel like I had to be a people pleaser, which caused all kinds of problems in my life. So as I started looking for a place to have faith, I started stepping into, like, what if we are all part of the universe? What if we are all connected? What if there is this, just like, there isn't this deity per se, but we're all connected, and like, holy smokes, if it's all energy. And I started going down that kind of rabbit hole. And I realized that I am the center of the universe in my life. You're the center of the universe in your life, right? We are meant to be having these expansive, amazing, beautiful, painful, fantastic, all these different things that make up the mosaic of our lives. And I believe that spirituality is really feeling love and compassion deeply for ourselves, because that shines out and touches everybody. It touches people you don't even know. So to me, spirituality is really the path to yourself, and really being open and accepting of other people and their journey. And we're just having this amazing experience together. And it doesn't mean that I love everybody. I'm not loving light. I got serious boundaries. People don't get to cross, okay? But I do believe that it's, me, and then creator, source, whatever. It's just, there are no hierarchies. I'm open to it. Like, let's have more of it. You know, like I want to drink it in. I want to experience it. It's very different to me than my religion I had, because the religion I had made me feel like I was never going to be part of the club ever. And with spirituality, I'm like, oh, I'm in the club. We're all in the club. This is cool. This is very inclusive.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you know, something I was thinking about in preparation for our talk tonight was, you know, the more I get into my own spirituality and my own journey, the more I realize that everything that we've been taught in our society is so backwards. And I think that spirituality, too, we learn through our religion, or even if we're not religious, it doesn't really matter. If you live in the United States of America, we are sort of based on these Judeo-Christian values. And, you know, the idea is that to be spiritual, or to be, you know, a new word that I really have come to despise is worthy. You know, like, I don't know why I don't like that word, but because it almost means like you have to do certain things to deserve something, you know, or like whatever. But you know, when I think about it, we've been taught that in order to be accepted by God, or accepted as good enough to be, you know, loved by God, that we have to please other people, and we have to do for others, and we have to, you know, be kind to your neighbors, which that's fine, but, you know, do things for other people. And it's always others focused. And something I really learned from you, I think, and I'm still learning, is that no, actually it's backwards. We are supposed to start here with ourselves. And so when you realize that and you start going down that path, which feels really weird for a therapist who's, you know, always supposed to be helping other people and who spent her whole life trying to save and help everybody, it's been a very wonderful, really wonderful, important experience for me to be like, oh no, like actually I have permission to make myself feel good too. Like I didn't know that. And didn't believe that wasn't in my wheelhouse. And it seems that the more I understand that, the better my life is rolling. And the more, you know, my relationships feel more authentic. Everything feels better. And so I thank you for teaching me that. And I think that we are taught backwards.
Right. Well, I mean, it's kind of like the hierarchy system that I was mentioning in the church. And listen, that's just my experience. So my experience doesn't have to be everyone's experience.
Right.
But the realization I came to was that there was this kind of like, always got to be people pleasing. And I'm not, you know, God's mad at me. That's kind of the Roman Catholic tenet, right? That like, you just screwed up again. So you got to start from the beginning. So I really got taught that people pleasing and doing whatever I had to do to make someone like me. Can you imagine what my life looked like for a good portion of it? Because I subscribed to the idea that I needed to make other people happy so they would like me.
Yeah.
So you can imagine.
Yeah, I get it. I lived it my whole life. Yeah, I understand.
So you can imagine what those relationships look like and how
not great.
Not
great. Yeah.
Because I didn't understand for a long time, like, oh my God, so what if they don't like you? So what? You know, like if you can let that go, and whatever bad thing you think is going to happen, let it happen. You know, boundaries are so important. And the boundary that you put up to protect yourself, or to make sure that you are staying in your own lane and doing what's right for you, that's healthy. And that is self-love, and that is self-worth, and that is holding yourself accountable. But, you know, because it's not just the other people, it's for us as well. But the only people who are going to get freaked out about you having a boundary is someone who's enjoying the fact that you didn't have one. So it really does take practice to be comfortable with putting that boundary up, because a lot of people think that setting a boundary is confrontational. And I don't think that it is. I think that a boundary is just a gentle reminder. This is what I need to expect. If you're going to be, you know,
in my life,
my boss, my friend, my counselor, my this, my that, this is what I need. This is what I'm bringing to the table. This is what I need from you. And you can honor it or not. It's not even personal. It's just like, this is how my life works.
But it's amazing that to me that that's actually where, my opinion, but true spirituality begins,
Mm.
because we are certainly not taught that. And I don't think it's not anyone's fault, or people do what they know, and we have to um, put something on a pedestal and praise it and worship it, and then we'll be good. Or,
Right.
we have to, I don't know, do these rituals, and then, God will love us. Or, we have to go to, in my case, I was raised Jewish, and, I'm still Jewish, but I'm not a huge, I don't go to temples very ever, but it's not because there's anything wrong with it. It's just what makes me feel
Right.
connected to God and to my own spirituality. It happens right now, right here. It doesn't happen in a synagogue. But yet, for many people, it does happen, in a house of worship for whatever, you know. So, how does that interface? Like, let's say you have a client, I'm sure you do, who is very religious, of all types and shapes and
Mm-hmm.
sizes. How does that interface with the way that you teach spirituality?
So for me, it's really about meeting the client where they are, and anything that gives them a grounding that makes them feel accepted and loved, right? So if the religion is working positively in their life, it's not even a blip on the radar screen for our conversations.
Right.
If the religion though has got tenets and things that this person has to do to try to fit in and it doesn't work for them, then it's important that they look at what fits for them. And so I'll kind of try to help them see, like, okay, let's play through the scenarios of what you can do to reclaim your happiness, your path to happiness, right? Um, it's really up to them to decide how religion's working in their lives, and I do try to have a cultural awareness and sensitivity to people that come for a reading and they may have a religion that has certain ideas and they're living by those tenements, like I'm going to respect that, right? But when I'm dealing with spirit just wants you to know what's best for your highest greatest good. There's no judgment. There's no, you must make this decision, because whatever decision you make is going to be expansive for you. You're going to learn something from it. It's going to be a joyful experience probably, or it's probably not, like that's, you're still going to get something from it. So I try to, like, if there's sensitivities around a religion and how someone kind of views the world, I definitely try to tune into that or ask them about it. But it's never a taboo subject for me. It's like, is this something, it's not something if I'm giving a reading that usually comes up. If someone wants me to check in on it or gets real specific, then we'll go there. But I think religion can work beautifully in people's lives. It's meant to be something that really helps you stay connected. In the work I do, a lot of times people will use the word God instead of spirit. Okay, like maybe it's the same thing. It's fine.
Right. So if you have somebody, because I do, funny enough, over the years that I've been doing, counseling, I often get a lot of clients that ask me, they'll come and say, as part of my therapy, I'd really like to discuss religious beliefs, spiritual beliefs, and a lot of times the people who come in with that maybe have just lost a loved one, and it really gets them thinking about the meaning of life and where their loved one might be. And so I'm always excited to have those conversations with people, and have always had kind of an open view about religion and spirituality. Like, whatever works is good. But a lot of times people do come in and they want to have these conversations, so it's very interesting. But I think a question for you that I have is, if somebody comes into counseling or comes to you for counseling or comes in for mental, whatever it is, and they say, hey, I don't know what spirituality is. I don't know what it means. And even when you say there's me and there's the universe, like, help me make sense of this. I want to begin a journey, what advice would you maybe have for them?
Well, the best advice I ever got in my life, bar none, was be curious, right? So be curious and stay curious. This is really a path to get to know yourself on a more intimate level. And I think that while there are a lot of practices in spirituality that are outside of you, the entire journey is about going inward. So you really want to stay curious and go with what feels good. It might feel a little bit unfamiliar, but I don't think the journey, your spiritual journey, is supposed to be painful. I think that there's this idea that you have to suffer.
Yes.
That's a kind of a religious idea, I think, sometimes, but suffering equals something, like you're scoring future points or something. And I think that the suffering that happens in a spiritual journey is you start to get to know yourself, and you really can have moments where you're like having the dark night of the soul, where you're peeling back the layers, right? And you're having to forgive yourself or see some things in a new way. And that can be very painful, right? But I think the spiritual journey is really about getting to know yourself on a deeper level, because that's really the whole spiritual connection, is you and life force or whatever it is to you. So it's very individual. And I don't think that there is any one path forward. I'm one that, I guess I don't really, because again, the Catholic upbringing, I'm not really one to be like I believe source, spirit, whatever. I believe there's this bigger consciousness that we're able to tap into. But I don't believe that it's got any judgment, and I don't believe that it cares one way or the other if I go to that concert or drink too many beers or make that bad choice. There's not a judgment. So it's like, does it feel scary, or does it feel exciting to think there could be a source, whatever you want to call it, that just loves you regardless? Is that God? Okay, cool. Whatever that is, but could you hold the belief that maybe there's this whole situation where no matter what you do, there's love and no judgment? That's pretty awesome. And I'm holding out for that. That's part of my belief system.
Yeah, it's interesting because we are constantly policing ourselves. We're constantly judging ourselves. And I believe so much of that comes from our God concept. What is our God concept? What do our religious beliefs teach us? Or if we don't have any, if we grew up in a household that maybe didn't have any, then we learned it from mom and dad. And
Right.
if we're religious, or we grew up in a religious household, we got that and mom and dad and the neighbors and school. And,
It's
so
a lot of weight.
it is.
Right? Like, this just feels real tight.
Yeah.
That's a lot to carry, right? So what if you just could put that off on the side, quit carrying it, and kind of figure out for you, through some, stop subscribing to that programming. Would you be more comfortable setting boundaries and putting yourself first? It takes practice to do this, because I really believe this is programming. And I don't mean that like we're all mindless drones, but I mean, you collect all this as you go.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is unlearning things. And I think that we do it at our own pace, right? And so anytime you can kind of pop the hood and do a little check and do I still believe this? Is this still working for me? I think that's really healthy. And I think that's part of a spiritual journey, is to really kind of go through and start to look at, what belief systems do I hold, and are they working in my life?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, do you think that, this is maybe, I don't know, this is kind of a big question, but do you think that spirituality, from your standpoint, has an important role in counseling, mental health counseling?
Well, I can speak for how I do a coaching session. And I would say that I tend to use it as a tool in working with people. I don't just kind of go in and hijack the session and like get a bunch of information that, they don't know I have. I don't do that, but I kind of try to bring them into their feelings and going inward and their energy.
Okay.
And I'll kind of do like, well, when you say that, how does that make you feel? Like concentrate on your body, like concentrate on, how does that feel when you say that about yourself or when you say that about that situation? 9 times out of 10, they'll say, okay, well, if you're asking me to focus on that, funny enough, I'm having a weird like feeling in my gut, or I'm having like a little bit of a pang in my arm or whatever. So there's some kind of energetic reaction.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm trying to help them do is connect the thought. How's it really making you feel? Because most people numb themselves. They don't know why they feel depressed. They don't know why they feel upset. They don't know why that thing is still bugging them. So I'm trying to get them to get into their energy. Because if you ask in your body, like show up for me, typically you'll get a response, and that helps them connect a little bit more. So it's not just this crazy big concept out here. I don't know why I'm upset. Now it's kind of like, well, I can kind of put my finger on it now, or there was an actual connection between something that feels physical, right? So for me, I guess spirituality in the sense of the inward journey, yeah, I'd say it's a big deal.
Yeah, I think so too. And all of the early personality theorists like Freud and Jung and all the way down, all, they all had the ultimate goal of therapy would be self-actualization. And within self-actualization, they believed that spirituality or coming to know yourself spiritually was part of that actualization. And Carl Jung was really big on that. And he said, you cannot be self-actualized without a sense of spirituality. So it's interesting, like from the very beginning in my field, it's always been like a thread, but it doesn't, there's none of our theories or models or anything speaks to it. So if we as therapists want to bring that in, of course, some do. Some just like run away from it. They don't want anything to do with it. I personally believe that, and again, it's not a religious issue at all. I have clients of all religions, and it's really cool, and I love it. But it's a matter of being able to put the pieces together, because so many of us go through so much hardship. And then we sometimes feel sorry for ourselves. Well, why me? Or why did I have to go through this? Or why does life have to be so painful? Or, what is the meaning of all of this? And I think that if we have that, I guess that spiritual connection, or this idea that it's all a puzzle that we're journeying through, that, the pieces sort of come together as we go, that it helps people just take a rest for a minute. Like, okay.
Right. And encouraging them, to stay curious, because when you question, I just talked to someone today and she was having a rough moment. And we talked about, have you ever considered, as crazy as it sounds, giving that grief or that feeling a face, a shape, a color, sit down on the couch next to this, thing, this triangle, whatever, football, whatever it is, and say, what are you trying to show me? Why do you keep popping up? Why do you keep popping up? It's like a small kid that wants attention, that starts off going, mom, mom. And suddenly it's this huge screaming tantrum in the middle of this grocery store, right? Because the child wants attention. So a lot of times when our old stuff is coming up, it's because it wants some attention. So I'm like, hey, what's this about? What are you trying to talk to me about? And instead of pushing against it so it can come back harder, stronger, I want to get it to a point where the volume gets turned down just enough that I can kind of integrate it back into me a little bit. It's not going to go away. It's not, my past is my past. I'm like one big Jenga, sorrow, loss, regret, stupidity, like people's names on these things, right? I'm just one big Jenga thing. So instead of trying to pull out all my pieces and have me fall to the ground and not know who I am, I'm like, I know who I am. I've done good stuff. I've done dumb stuff. I continue to do all the same. But so I'm going to try to integrate this and stop pushing against it and make peace with the fact that part of the human condition is I'm going to have a bad day. I'm going to recall this memory that is really troubling me. So I kind of try to work with things, little pieces, right? I'm not a professional mental health person. I'm just someone who is trying to figure out the puzzle of me. And in doing so, I'm also trying to help other people with their puzzle pieces. And, you know, again, if you stay curious and approach it from, this is interesting data points. I have a friend who's probably watching this going, there she goes with those data points again. I say data points all the time. And I just know it drives her crazy. Hi, Tamara.
Hi, Tamara. Let's talk about some data points because I'm curious, like what that talk to me about that. What is a data point?
So if you can pull yourself out, so why do things hurt and why are they painful? Because they're personal. Okay. So what if they weren't personal for a minute, right? So what if you were able to try a sociological experiment and you just acted as the observer?
Okay.
Instead of judging yourself and being in it, because that's what we do. We're judging. Okay. So what if you were to observe and just take in things as data points? Now, instead of judging yourself and going, you're so stupid, why did you eat that again? You're trying to lose weight and you're eating this crap, you know, the inner dialogue that we have. Instead, what if you're observing instead? And at the end of the day, you go, okay, I have some data. Seems about 2:30, 3 o'clock, Rosalie has a sugar rush or is longing for a sugar rush. Okay, good to know. So now we can kind of, instead of beating myself up for wanting that candy bar or, you know, jonesing for that cup of coffee, which I don't need at 3 o'clock, God. What if I'm like, okay, I'm noticing some patterns. So now I have data. It's not personal. I'm not attacking myself. I'm not sabotaging myself. And now I can kind of start to, like, I don't want to say plant, but I can start to pivot to different choices. So I'm a big fan of collecting data and not making it personal. Because when you make it personal, you never rise above the self-loathing conversation that you have with yourself. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. 100%. So are you sure you're not I think you were a killer counselor in your past life? My God, something, because you're so good.
You know what? If I had a past life, I promise you some of the glimpses I've seen, I had a really good time, but I was not counseling anybody. I was drinking. I was in whorehouses. I was smoking a lot. I was having a good time, but I wasn't helping people.
Well, you sure are now. I think you're just so brilliant. And sorry, Tamara, we had to cover the data points. I needed to know what that was.
She'll sorry. Take later.
I had to hear about this. So, okay. So I could have you on over and over again, and I plan on it because this was so interesting, and I can't believe an hour like just went by like that.
Thank you so much.
But just to recap, for people who are watching and are interested in, you know, your services and who would like to be a client, we're going to definitely make sure that when I post this and I edit it and I make it look really pretty and maybe put some music in there, that your information will be there so that they can reach you.
Great.
And so first session, call you up, schedule the appointment. What do I expect? What's going to happen?
Well, you're going to change your life. No, I don't know.
You will.
No, so I mean, like if someone it depends on what they're looking for. If they're looking for a reading, that's a very different thing. If they're looking to work together towards a goal to help get some empowerment kind of stuff going on, that's a little bit different. But typically, sessions are 30 minutes to an hour. And I would say that after, you know, we have some dialogue. There might be some reading that happens in there, but it's always permission based. So if you're totally not into that, we're not going to go there. I meet you where you are, but it's kind of there is no real template. I wish there was, but by the time we get off the phone, I think I can probably promise you that you're going to feel pretty good and probably feel like you have a path forward and at least feel like you have someone who's holding space for you. There's nothing you can say to me that's going to sound crazy because the stuff I hear, I could write a book. I won't because of confidentiality, but I hear some crazy stuff. So you're not going to be able to blow my mind, trust me.
Okay. So we'll make sure that people know how to get a hold of you. And,
Great.
You know, and I think just to sort of like wrap it up, that spirituality, if you're interested in learning more about it or you don't understand it, that, you know, from what Rosalie is saying, like, take it easy and just see it as yourself and everything around you and that connection between. You don't have to ascribe to a certain belief system or a certain religion in order to be connected to the universe, connected to yourself, and that it's supposed to feel good. It's not supposed to
It's supposed to be fun.
It's supposed to be fun. And that, sure, you might have to, just like in therapy, you might have to look at some uncomfortable things, but we're all trying to get everyone to the other side. We're helpers. We're not trying to shame anybody or judge anybody. We're just trying to help people along their journey, whatever that might look like.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Any last thoughts? Will you come back and talk with us again?
I could talk to you about stuff forever.
I know.
I might even be prepared next time. We'll see.
No, your pose is perfect. This was great. It was so much fun. And we're definitely going to have you back.
Thank you.
And I have to put my glasses on so I can see how to even get out of this because I'm so blind. But so I just thank everybody for watching the Rebellious Counselor Live every Wednesday night at 8:00. And of course, if you need to reach me, I am very reachable all over social media. My website is actuation-counseling.com and at Actuation Counseling on Facebook, Eliz Therapist on Instagram, and the Elizabeth126 on YouTube. I think I better get all of those to match a little bit better. I'm just beginning. They're all over the place. There's 5 to 10 different ways of reaching me, but you can always just Google me and find me that way too. And same with Rosalie Brown. Thank you, Rosalie, for joining us all the way out in Los Angeles and taking the time.
Sure.
And I'll see everybody next week at 8:00. And so, Rosalie, you just stand by for just a minute because I'm going to talk to you backstage before I let you go. Okay. Good night, everybody. Thank you for watching.